Before this week's episode, I wanted to take a moment to let everybody know that Rachel, one of our past guests, died this last week. I got this email from Victoria, her mother, and I wanted to read it. It says, "Hi, Cody and Chris. I just wanted you to know that Rachel passed away last night a little after 9. Her battle with ALS was valiant till the end. She was peaceful and without pain during the dying process. Thank you for allowing her to share her story with so many and for the friendship she had with you two. I know she treasured it." So Chris and I wanted to take a moment just to honor Rachel, just to say how much we appreciated the courageous way that she was able to talk about her illness and living with her illness. And, I appreciated a lot about her, but I really, I loved being able to get to meet her in person, which we did just maybe a couple months ago.
We did, and at the airport.
It was, it's different for me. I meet a lot of people who die, and most of them, they're patients and I care about them, but they're not friends. And I feel like the people that have been on this podcast, we interact with them for such a long time, and we interacted with Rachel even more. And so it feels different for sure. It feels more like losing a friend. And so I'm feeling sad about it. I'm also feeling glad that she is through with her, I know that it wasn't a fun process, the dying process for her, but so I'm glad she's done with that, but also sad that she's gone.
Yeah. And I think when you told me, Cody, the news, I think I wasn't sure what I felt. I mean, certainly you feel sadness, but I think getting to know somebody through their dying experience, again, you said you do it all the time, but I don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I do through this program, but I wasn't sure what else was going on in my heart. I felt sad, but also, like you said, relief. I was glad that her end was as good as can be. So it was a very strange feeling.
Well, I want to say to you, Chris, I think there are a lot of people who have that same kind of reaction about feeling sad and also relief. And family members often have that experience where they're feeling sad, but also relief that the thing is done. And there's a lot of times some guilt that comes along with that feeling, because you feel like you should feel sad, but the relief is a little bit of a surprise. And so, I mean, that's instructive to anybody who's listening, that relief and sadness in death are a totally normal thing. And you don't feel guilty about it. It's totally normal.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, that's true. That's a really good moment of, I'm just not used to this. And you've dealt with it in so many different variations. And to feel sad, but also a whole host of emotions with this.
Yeah.
All of it, I think, grounded for me in sadness.
Sure.
Like that's the foundation, but there's beauty in it too, because I would not have gotten to know her if it weren't for this. And
absolutely.
Gratitude.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a gift to know her.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. One other thing. So I emailed Victoria and asked her if it was okay if we shared something on the podcast, and she said yes. She wrote this email when she said yes, and I just want to read this little part because I thought this was it made me feel good, and I hope it makes you feel good too, Chris. She said, Rachel made friends with others whose stories were told on your podcast. There was a camaraderie among them all, that the battle was worth fighting, but eventually they would be free from the fight and the pain. Until then, they would cheer for each other to the fullest. And I mean, that brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah, the cheering for each other. I felt that when we talked on Thanksgiving with Javita and Riaz and Rachel and all of them. It was so great to see them. It's wonderful for them to be able to support each other that way. And just to witness that was great. It was
really cool. So, Rachel, if you're listening to this, thank you for sharing your story with us and for letting us be part of your life.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel.
What I want people to remember is that I care about them and I care about their circumstance, and that if I could do something to help, I would do that thing. I want to be remembered as a person who cares. And I think that's, I don't know, it's what we all want, right? Is for somebody to care about us and to care about the things that matter.
You remind me of the days gone by, all the real good love to it up just in time. And if I show up,
Since we started Dying to Tell You over a year ago, I've encountered many healthcare professionals in person and on social media that have listened to the podcast. Often, the story shared on the podcast sparks a memory of a story in their own career that has deeply affected them. As healthcare professionals, our patients are often our greatest teachers. The things we encounter as we care for patients and families from varied backgrounds helps us to expand our minds and breadth of experience, changing the way we practice and sometimes the way we live our lives. I wanted people to have the benefit of hearing some of those life-changing stories, to hear from these people that dedicate their lives to caring for the sick, especially those who care for people at the end of their lives. I wanted Dying to Tell You listeners to hear another perspective. So I've invited some friends to tell some tales about the things they've encountered that have changed their lives. This is Dying to Tell You, the Caring Perspective. Well, Suzanne, welcome to Dying to Tell You, the Caring Perspective. I think you know that Dying to Tell You is a podcast where I typically interview people who are living with life-limiting or terminal illness. And between seasons, we decided to do this where I have friends who are also healthcare workers who wanted to tell some stories. And I often say that our patients are our greatest teachers. And so I want to give people the opportunity to hear from others, just a story that kind of changed the way that either changed the way somebody practiced or changed the way somebody thinks about life and living and dying and all of that. So, and so we met on social media, and maybe you can just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. So my background, I am a registered nurse by trade, and my background is hospice care, which is end of life care, and oncology care, which is cancer care. And so the minute that I stepped into that space, my life completely changed for multiple reasons. I think that when we work in that sacred area where we're able to see into a part of the world that's so much greater than most of us know. And it's really sacred and it's beautiful. And there's healing and presence and challenges also that bubble up at the end. But then what was happening is I was seeing some things and recurring things. So I would see, and this really struck me right away, Cody, is that people that got closer towards the actual end of life, they started to what I call getting their spiritual eyes. And they started to say many of the same things as they departed, whether different cultures and religions, which was really magnificent. And then I was privileged many, many things to just see an experience that left you changed forever, that you will never, not only as a practitioner, but as a human being in this world, you'll never look at life the same way. And like you say, they're our greatest teachers. Absolutely. That is exactly what they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you, tell a little bit about what you're doing now, because, it's a little bit different than where you started, right?
It is. And it's so interesting because when I tell the story, if you would have told me, that I would not be a home hospice nurse or a hospice nurse at this moment, I would never have believed you, because when I had found it, it was like, a piece of puzzle fitting. And I just felt so like on my purpose. And what I was finding in that space is that people were still struggling to have good end of life experiences. And I thought, gosh, this is the end of life provider. And how is it not going well? And I really had to do my research and say what happened here. And it really is because of about the last 120 years, we've removed death from our awareness and seeing it. And it's like 100 years ago, a grandmother used to teach a grandchild how to care for someone who was dying. We died in the home. We had our wakes in the home. It was surrounded by ritual. And now it's not. It's like running in the opposite direction. And we know that 100% of the time it will show up. And when it does, it's turning out to be, no matter how much you can push it, 100% guaranteed, hold steady, right? But no matter how much we can push it away, when it does show up and we're not prepared, which we're not these days, it's 1,000, if not 10,000 times more difficult, which doesn't need to be. It's hard already. So I then, as the hospice nurse, the model's a beautiful model of care. I'm really supposed to teach the families how to do that end of life care. It was very difficult when I'm there for only an hour once a week, or people come on very late, and the fear of death that's like prevalent right now. And so I developed training where I could teach families through this 3-phase model how to care for somebody at the end of life, and ideally before they ever get there. And that started about 16 years ago. I know I'm dating myself, and that's okay. About 16 years ago, I started giving this at the local library, and then I put it online. And to this day, we've trained over 360,000 people globally with that free training. And it's just built into an institute and platform for education, and bringing back the sacredness of end of life, the education surrounding it, advanced directives. And then that also brings back the sacredness of life when we talk about end of life. So it's a full win to me across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. The very first guest on our podcast his name is Aaron. And that was his thing. He knew he was living with terminal cancer, and he wanted to be intentional about how he came to the end of his life. And it changes the way that you look at life now when you are faced with mortality now. So I'm not dying. As far as I know, but I work with people all the time who are, and so it's in my mind, and I'm aware that life is short. I'm aware that life is precious. I'm aware that life is sacred, and that changes the way that I live. And so that's the whole point, right? I
couldn't have said that better, Cody. And I think I really want people to hear this, is that this is the life's journey. And here's the thing, end of life can go really well with the right education and support. But when you live, just like you said, with the awareness that one day this journey, this gift we've been given will not be the same as we know it today. You live with a whole different level of gratitude and appreciation, and that changes your life.
Yeah, for sure.
Completely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. Tell me a story.
Okay. I was like, okay, which one do I have? We could be here for hours.
Yeah, you got thousands, right?
I have a lot, and they're really wonderful. But I do want to tell you one that really was, and maybe if we'll have time for two, but I want to tell you one that really was completely from left field somewhat, so to speak, and also just changed my life. So I was in the oncology unit. So I was a cancer nurse at the time. So I had started as a hospice nurse, and then I know there's no accidents in life. And I really knew that I wanted to be a really good end of life educator and hospice nurse. And to do that, I thought it probably best to go back and to see in oncology what people go through before they actually get to the end of life. So here I am in the oncology unit, and I'm working those very long Friday, Saturday, Sunday shifts that are supposed to be 12 hours. They're more like 14, 15, 16. So we need to get that straight, how much healthcare providers do. But it was a Friday, and there was a woman who came in that was 44 years old, and she had broken her hip because she was under chemotherapy for gallbladder cancer. It was brittling her bone. She broke her hip. So her and her sister came into the oncology unit in, really scared, really in shock and all of that. And so one of the first things I'll always share with caregivers and what we want to do is you always want to, build the trust with your patients and family so that you can help to settle down the stress and try and move through acute issues and all. So that was really my technique for them on Friday. And I just wanted to be there for them. And so on Saturday, I was working again, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And on Saturday, when I was at about 6:00, my shift technically ended at 7:30. I went to help Maureen from the bedside commode, which is just a turn and pivot. So she was on the bedside commode, just a turn and pivot back to bed. And she was out of breath. And she doesn't have any lung issues. She's 44 years old. And we took that in for a minute. I asked her if she wanted oxygen with nasal cannula. She said no. We sat there, which is my kind of normal when people are short of breath. We both knew in that moment that something very serious was happening, but we didn't say anything. We just kind of stood there for a minute, got her back to baseline. And then the night nurse, the next day when I came in, the night nurse said that she continued to have shortness of breath that night. They ran a bunch of tests. They found that she had a pulmonary emboli that went to her lung. So there was, it broke off and the fracture went to her lung, and this is not a good thing. And on Sundays in the hospital, doctors come in and do kind of it's like a different kind of setup. So they do fragmented shifts when they do their rounds. And the doctor came in, I was on the phone with her a lot. The doctor came in at about 3:00 and she was like, "What's happening? What is happening?" And I was like, "Well, she has short of breath. She has a pulmonary emboli and all of this." And so I had a habit of going into the room and do rounds with the doctor so I could hear what they said. So I knew that families understood or lack thereof, so I could clarify it. The minute we walked into Maureen's room, Maureen looked at the doctor and said, "I just want to thank you for everything you've done for me." And I turned to look at the doctor and tears were going down her face. And in that moment, Cody, Maureen was telling us she was going to die before any of us called it. And so we went out to the nurse's station and, the doctor's like flipping out, not throwing, but like, "We have to do something. We have to do something." And there really is nothing you could do. She doesn't have a platelet count. All her blood levels are low. The only thing you could think about is probably hanging blood thinners, but she would have bled out. It just wasn't going to work. But this is what I want to tell you. They said that Sunday night, Maureen woke up from a nap at about 10:30 at night and goes, "Get my sister. I'm transitioning," with like all the excitement that you would hear from an 8-year-old child telling that you were going to Disney World. They went out to the lounge, got her sister. Her sister came in the room and she goes, "I'm transitioning," like so excited. So what I want to say to people is, what did she see and what did she know that not only removed her fear, but had her excited about where she was going next? And so this happens in so many different ways with patients where they share, but that was just from Friday to Sunday in this traumatic moment that she had that shift that she was able to see. And this happens all the time with people like that. I feel like, if I may, we're holistic beings. Yes. So we're physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Now, I've been honored with my career to be with over 1,000 people at the end of life. So I have a really good pool to pick from. And of course, not every person shares these experiences. Not everyone, I believe they all have their own experience. Maybe sometimes it's after, but it's their journey, not mine. But it's happened so often that people will share. And it's almost as if, as their physical body's diminishing, it's almost if as their spiritual body's growing, like they have one foot in this world and one foot in the next. Because sometimes they have all this new awareness, and they can also many times look back at their life and make sense out of the things that have been carrying with them, causing them pain or confusion. They're able to look at it and they literally go, "I get it now. I know why all that happened." And it's almost as if this big clarity comes before they leave. But for Maureen to have the understanding that she was going to die before we did, and then whatever she saw that had her so excited and at peace. And we want people to step into this space, because if we don't talk about end of life, we deny ourselves, just like you started this podcast. with the gift it provides each and every one of us to know that every single day is its own little lifetime and levels of gratitude. But it also denies us these experiences, which for me changed everything. Knowing that there is something more, knowing that the common things that people at the end of life will talk about their loved ones who've died already, being back in the room with them. You know, we can't necessarily prove it, but we can't prove that it isn't happening either.
Right.
And shouldn't we just err on the side of, wow, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That, yeah, I have people ask me about that a lot, you know, like, do I think that people are really seeing their loved ones? Is it something in their mind? And, you know, of course it's happening in their mind because everything is happening in our mind. You know, the story about Joan of Arc saying that God is talking to her and the people who are questioning her say, it's all in your imagination. And she says, well, yeah, of course. Where else would it be? That's where God talks to us. So, I mean, it's just, of
True.
course it's happening in your mind. Is it real spiritual beings that are in the room? I don't know. Could it be? Sure. And why do I need to invalidate or even validate somebody else's experience? That's their experience. So if that's what they're experiencing and that's what they believe, good. Especially if it helps them make that change from being scared or anxious or whatever to being peaceful. Who am I to argue?
Absolutely. And I think that when families recount loved ones who've had experiences like this that talk about it, regardless, again, validation or not, it's their experience, but they're saying it with such happiness that their loved one was at peace, was in this space, and that will be in their heart forever. And I don't think that we could ever ask for more than that.
Right. Yeah. We always say, we say a lot in the hospital, the patient is important, right? They're the ones in the center, but their loved ones, they have to live with whatever happens forever. And so we always try to pay attention to their experience as well. And that is a big part of it is, how their loved one dies is going to live with them for the rest of their lives. So it is very important to see.
I love that you said that, Cody, because I think that's like the whole platform of my whole institute is because we can't go back and do that end of life again. And so 9 out of 10 people say they want to be cared for at home when they're terminally ill. And families, Medicare determined that they're doing 98% of the hands-on care in the home when they usually don't know the first thing about how to do that. And so me coming up with a training to help them to know how to do it so they can feel supported and empowered. Because just like you said, if it doesn't go well, they remember that forever. And if it does go well, they remember that forever. And can go, and it can go well. Yeah. With practical support. Yeah.
For sure.
So that was great.
So tell me, how did that experience change the way, you know, what did it teach you? What was that for you?
It taught me that people need to know about this. It taught me that people need to know that end of life is a natural, sacred experience. And there are people that are at the end of life sharing amazing things that they're experiencing, and we should step into. And again, whether you believe it or don't believe it, at least we should be talking about it, because right now death is the number one fear, and that fear is causing so many bad choices and people to not have good end of lives, which should not be a part of this. And so for me, it gave me so much inspiration about a much bigger picture going on in this journey about love and about purpose. And then what is my role? How do I show up and contribute at this moment? And how do I help families, just like you said, because they're going to remember this experience forever. So what am I here to do? And, you know, removing your fear of death. And also, she was 44 years old. And it's like I talk a lot about people at the end of life having been privileged to live a long life. And that's not always the case.
No.
And so what it did for me is it allowed me to never put off anything that I'm not willing to die with not having done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so here I am in Zimbabwe, Africa. Here I am in Thailand teaching Buddhist monks. Here I am, just answering whatever I can that comes in, not let myself get fearful of, I can't do that, or, it's too big of an ask or whatnot, because it could end tomorrow. And I want to be able to not have big regret. Yeah.
Guarding against regret is an important phrase that we use a lot with patients and families, but also it's good for us, right? I mean, what's good for people who are dying is also good for me. We had
very much so.
I interviewed a gentleman named Joe, who's going to be on the next season of the podcast, who had colorectal cancer. He's in remission now, but he knows that at some point, unless something else happens, it will probably come back and it will probably take his life. And he was just talking about kind of the anxiety about, in the back of his mind, knowing, it's there, it could come back. He's got to go in for scans every so often, and wrestling with this idea of how to live his life, knowing that his life could be short. Does he go to his job, or does he sell everything and go live on a beach? Like it's a difficult choice in that situation. And I think in the interview, I said, we're not all that different from each other. My life is also short. I don't know how short, maybe not as short as his, but still, that little piece of his interview, I think, helped me to start thinking about, okay, what are the things that I'm putting off that I would be sad if I didn't get the chance to do? Are there, is there a bottle of wine that I'm saving for something special? Should I drink that? Are there things that I need to say to people? Are there things that I need to do that are really important? Don't try not to put the important things off. So yeah, very good.
I love that. And I would think that, one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned is that time is the most important question you'll ask yourself, is how you're choosing to spend it and who you're choosing to spend it with. Yeah. It's your most valuable commodity. We don't know how much we have of it. So I literally almost live like each day like one little lifetime, because I just don't know how many I have. So I just don't want to miss it. I want to be present. I want to be of service. I want to find the joy in the daily, because it's out there, if we can just connect with it, right? So not waiting to Friday, not waiting on these things. You're right.
You said maybe a second story. You got a second one for me?
I do. Okay. So I'm going to kind of turn the wheels here a little bit on a different one. Now, there's a few phenomenon that I'm sure you're very aware of that happen at the end of life, like the end of life rally, like the almost seeming like people can choose the time they have their last breath, depending on if they're waiting for someone to come, if they're waiting for someone to leave the room, which is, again, counterintuitive to families. No. Or a birth date.
Sometimes it hurts people's feelings too.
It very much does. But again, this is what we have to know about, because people hold on for years of that. A date or something of that nature. And then, of course, talking about loved ones who are back in the room with them. So those phenomenon happen over and over and over again. So here I am, a hospice nurse at the time, doing home hospice. I get a new patient. She's 99 years old. She's as sweet as they come. Just this little thing. 99. I met her. No pain, little bird of a thing, smiling. That night goes into her deep sleep coma. One daughter caring for her that's 73 years old. And so, because this is what we're talking about. And so normally the typical time in a deep sleep coma is 1 to 3 days, no longer than 3 days without water. The body will have its end of life. This didn't happen. And so I'm coming to visit and I'm trying to, again, uncover, is she hanging on for something? Is she waiting for someone to come? I asked the daughter. She said, no. She said, we thought she was going to die last year. Everyone came and had a big family reunion in the summertime. She's not waiting for anybody. I'm like, okay, does she seem uncomfortable? No. I'm like, okay, are you giving her alone time? Yes, I'm sleeping in a different room. Okay. So I'm baffled. I'm confused. And I go back to the hospice office and I'm doing my paperwork and I look at the face sheet and on the top right is her birthday. And in 4 days, she's going to turn 100. I go, she's waiting to turn 100. Then she's going to die. And it was so clear, Cody. It was as clear as anything. And I'm like, wow. So there's a protocol in hospice where you're supposed to give the on-call nurse a heads up if you think someone's going to die that night. And so she's giving report with another nurse. They're in the swivel chairs. Her back was to me. And I walk over and I said, I have a patient who's waiting to turn 100. Then she's going to die tonight. And they both flipped their chairs around and they were like, did she tell you that? And I was like, for a minute, I was taken aback because she didn't tell me in her words, but I felt it in every cell. I didn't even question it. And she did.
No,
she
that's great.
Waited and she was at peace and it was just amazing. Now, this was 10 days without water.
Wow.
So so let's talk for a minute, everyone. Science says that is not possible. I'm going to tell you, I was there. I had another patient 11 days. He had something that he was grappling with that he didn't want to let go, but still, like, these things do happen. But this was Aunt Bessie and good for her, and how amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was so good. It was so good.
100 years exactly.
Yep.
So great. So great. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us. You have a new book. Is that right?
Correct.
Tell us about it.
Okay. It is called The Good Death. And The Good Death is like the what to expect when you're expecting a baby, but for the opposite end of life. So this is the essential guide. This will take you, the reader, through, when we talk about those gaps and families not knowing about preparation and choices and how to care for their loved one, this book has everything. It's a step-by-step guide. But it's also amazing because it has the new, what I call the rebirth of end of life. So there's new options, like water cremations and bringing back ritual around the home wakes and doing eulogies in first person and all these beautiful choices that patients and families have. Not only are they emotionally friendly, but they're also financially and environmentally friendly. So just knowing that you have lots of options. Yeah. And it's an amazing book. I feel like every family should have this. And it's very inspiring. Just like we started today talking about how our lives have changed in the most positive way by embracing this sacred part of our journey. This book will allow you to hear about those stories and give you that inspiration as well. Yeah. Great. The Good Death. Yeah. Great.
Cool. And I assume you can get it all the places people get books.
And it's available everywhere and in Spanish and Chinese and all the languages. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I only know English, so I'll get the English version.
Me too. Me too.
Cool. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes so anybody that wants to see it can click on the link and go buy your book.
All right. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you to Suzanne for joining us on the podcast, and thank you for your work over the years to normalize the discussion of death and dying, and for training those who care for others at the end of their lives. You can pre-order Suzanne's new book, The Good Death, now at thegooddeathbook.com, and be sure to check out her website in the show notes to learn more about her many training programs, her podcasts, and more. Remember, you can watch all episodes of The Caring Perspective on YouTube, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have more guests coming each week with thoughtful stories of hope and learning at the end of life. Thanks again for listening. This is Dying to Tell You, The Caring Perspective.